People of Walton, this is your mayor, John Ward. Now, I want to take a moment to thank y'all for your patience and resolve in these most challenging times. It's that Southern spirit, it's that Texas grit that gives me full confidence that we'll not only get through this crisis, but come out stronger on the other side. I only wish I could be here to see it, huh? However, folks, I regret to announce that today I'll be moving my office to a secure spot outside the city limits. Now, no need to go assuming the worst. All right. This move is strictly to facilitate better coordination with our boys in uniform, who are at this very moment putting together a surefire plan to retake our city and eradicate the... Huh? Let's get waiting. They're where? Excuse me. So just, hold tight, secure your homes, and I assure you...
Hello?
The tide will turn. God bless you. God bless you.
I'm not sure if anyone out there is still listening to this trash. But if you are, know this. Nobody is coming to help you. There's no plan. Look. What they did, it's wrong. It's all wrong. We are trapped. And staying here isn't an option. You have to get out. Escape the city any way you can. Get out now.
The year is 1980. The story takes place in Walton, Texas. The city has been overrun by what can only be described as a zombie outbreak. There's no help coming. The government has abandoned the city. The only option left is to escape by any means necessary. At the beginning of the game, you're given the choice to select between pairs of survivors scattered throughout Walton City. For this playthrough, I chose Daphne and Penny. Daphne is a dedicated therapist who is helping her patient Penny manage her intrusive thoughts and violent impulses. However, when the city fell to the undead, the two were forced to rely on one another for survival. They are trapped inside a barricaded diner, low on supplies, and with the barricades failing fast, new shelter and new supplies are desperately needed. Unfortunately, navigating the city is difficult due to the massive amount of undead. Traveling long distances without rest usually ends in death. The pair decide that Daphne will stay at the base and cook, since she has a talent for it. Penny, with her more violent nature, will be the one who braves the horde-infested locations in search of supplies. The first place Penny scopes out is hatchet construction. Luckily, there aren't many undead around the construction site, just a few stragglers that Penny is easily able to stealthily eliminate. Penny successfully scavenges the entire area, finding a ton of useful supplies and food. While at the construction site, she finds a telescope. Penny uses the telescope to scan the city for other points of interest. Through it, she spots a gas station that might hold valuable supplies and could even serve as a potentially new shelter. She notes this location, Texway Gas on Hart Street. Penny returns to the shelter and shares her discovery. Together, they plot a course. When Penny reaches Texway Gas, she finds that there are very few zombies held up inside, and the building itself is quite large, making it the perfect spot to form a new shelter. Penny enters Texway Gas, kills every zombie inside, and thoroughly scavenges the entire building. While clearing the second floor, she comes across a two-way radio. Over the radio, she hears a voice, Joe Tuvasa, a survivor begging not to be left behind. Penny invites him to join them at their shelter. Before leaving Texway Gas, Penny notices something strange out back. Near a manhole, she sees a symbol hastily painted on the pavement. However, it's too dirty to make out clearly. It's partially obscured by dust and grime. Back at the shelter, Daphne, Penny, and Joe decide they should abandon the failing diner and move their base to a much more secure Texway Gas. After moving, the group establishes a new system. Daphne stays home to cook meals and improve tools and shelter. Penny and Joe take turns scavenging, fighting zombies, and scouting for potential new safe houses. This system works extremely well. They clear several locations, gaining supplies and momentum, until Joe sets out on a dangerous scavenging mission to Fire Station number 8. There, he finds a clean, fenced area with barbed wire wrapped around the top. Using a lockpick, Joe breaks through the gate. Inside, he finds an empty tent. Moving deeper into the station, Joe eventually finds another survivor hiding in the fire tower. His name is Frank. Frank is a man with useful skills. He's a great cook, skilled with blunt weapons, but he has a bad back. Despite his physical limitations, the group decides to welcome him into the shelter. After filling his bag full of supplies, Joe stumbles across the same strange symbol that Penny had seen earlier, this time drawn onto an open vent on the fire station's roof. Inside the vent, Joe finds a few bootleg tapes and forged passports. Although he doesn't think much of it yet, he makes a mental note of the discovery and returns to the shelter. Now with 4 survivors, survival becomes significantly easier. 2 people stay home to cook and maintain the base, while 2 alternate scavenging and exploring. Eventually, the crew stumbles upon a house in Old Ballard. To the far right of the house, past a greenhouse, they discover another manhole cover. Around the cover, they notice the same strange markings and fresh boot prints pressed onto the mud nearby. Someone has been there recently. Near the sewer drain, Joe finds a note. It lists specific items that need to be delivered, confirming the existence of smugglers who are using the old flood tunnels beneath Walton to transport illegal goods. At the bottom of the note is an address, an old bookstore. The crew decides it's worth investigating. The bookstore is located all the way across the city in the Seneca district. They know the journey will be dangerous, but sticking to their scavenging strategy, moving building by building, they slowly make their way without any casualties. Eventually, they reach the bookstore, Bloomingburg Books. At first glance, it looks like just another abandoned building. However, while exploring the back of the bookstore, Joe spots someone scavenging. When Joe calls out to her, she bolts. Joe immediately gives chase. The chase is loud, attracting every zombie in the area. Fortunately, the pursuit leads onto the rooftops, where the undead can't follow. Joe corners the woman inside a small shed on the roof. Joe confronts the girl. Her name is Ava. Ava initially mistakes them for members of a rival group, either Perro Blancos or VMC. After clarifying that Joe isn't with either, Ava derogatorily refers to Joe as a sleeper, her word for people who cowardly hid away when Walton fell. Joe asks Ava about the radio broadcast they heard before setting out upon their journey. Ava admits it was her group, the Network, that was responsible for the broadcast, although she mocks her companions for how they handled it. She explains that she is just a mule, a low-level runner, and doesn't have the authority to help them escape. However, she points them towards someone who can. She tells them to go to a store called Pogo's in the Greenhaven district. At Pogo's, there's an ice cream machine in the back. The password to access the hidden area behind it is Cerebro. Joe returns to the shelter and relays Ava's information. The crew now has a new goal: make their way to Pogo's in Greenhaven and find someone who can help them escape the city. Joe is the survivor who goes into Pogo's first. As he approaches the restaurant, it feels strangely quiet. There aren't many zombies around. Joe carefully makes his way inside, taking out the lone zombie wandering near the entrance. He then finds an ice cream machine in the back, just as Ava described. Joe pushes the machine aside, revealing a hidden ladder leading down into a tunnel beneath the building. At the bottom of the ladder, Joe finds a long, dimly lit tunnel. At the far end stands a large metal door with a small slot at eye level. As Joe approaches, the slot opens, and a pair of suspicious eyes peer out at him. The guard doesn't recognize Joe, but Joe gives the password, Cerebro. The guard inspects Joe for any signs of zombie infection, then orders him to place all his weapons into a chest nearby. After complying, the door swings open, and the guard tells Joe to go speak with Corbin in the big tent. Joe walks through the tunnel, passing multiple armed guards. He eventually reaches a large tent, where a man sits at a desk. Corbin. Corbin introduces himself as the logistics guy. He's responsible for moving goods in and out of the city, keeping what little economy Walton has left alive. Joe asks if Corbin can help smuggle them out of Walton. Corbin doesn't say yes immediately. Instead, he explains that smuggling is costly and risky, so if Joe wants help, he'll need to earn it first. Corbin offers a deal. If Joe finishes the rounds of a missing courier, He'll consider putting Joe and his people on the next shipment out. To paint a picture of who this man Corbin is, I'll read you off a story Corbin tells Joe. Leningrad, winter 1941. The Germans surrounded it, cutting it off from the outside world for 872 days. They thought the people would starve, but a miraculous thing happened. An underground economy emerged. Essential goods were moved through the black markets and the city survived. After telling that little story, Corbin then says, "Now here we are again. Crisis breeds ingenuity. You want to call us criminals? Fine. But let's face it, official supply chains, gone in days. Military rations, a week, maybe. If people need anything now, they come to us. We are the only lifeline the city has." Corbin's point is chilling, but undeniable. His help will come at a price. The missing courier had 3 unfinished jobs. Find the confidential briefcase at the police station in the downtown district, retrieve the ornate cross from the Hitch Post bar in Southborough district, collect 10 units of pure alcohol scattered around the city. The crew agrees. They'll finish the courier's rounds and earn their escape. The crew decides to start with the Hitch Post bar, since it's the closest. The Hitch Post is a 3-story local bar that hosted live music events. It's heavily infested with zombies, especially near the stage area. Carefully, they clear the bar, floor by floor. Eventually, they find the ornate cross locked inside a file cabinet on the top floor. The cross is heavy, and it looks extremely valuable. They haul it back to the shelter. One task complete. After returning to the shelter, a bloody note is slid under their door. It reads, "You already know too much. Meet me at the Buckland water treatment plant. Come alone. And whatever you do, don't go down the long hall." The cryptic warning chills them, but before investigating it, they decide to finish another courier task, retrieving the confidential briefcase from the police station. The police station is a nightmare. It's crawling with zombies, swarms so thick that even a single misstep could wake dozens at once. Joe carefully navigates from room to room, stealthily killing where he can. Eventually, he finds the confidential briefcase on the upper floor. Mission accomplished. But curiosity gets the better of him. He decides to check the station's basement. What Joe finds there will haunt his nightmares forever. Bodies are strung up like meat on hooks. It looks as if people have been deliberately left there for the undead to feast on. Sickened and traumatized, Joe returns to the shelter with the briefcase. Now, they have 2 tasks done. But the horror they discovered changes everything. After everything that they've discovered, the note, the slaughter in the police basement, the crew decides to heed the bloody letter's warning. They make their way across the city to the Buckland water treatment plant, where they find Ava, but she's injured. She warns them, Corbin cannot be trusted. Ava explains that Corbin uses people for profit, and when they can no longer pay, they simply disappear. She suspects he butchered her parents after they racked up an unpayable debt. She confirms that the network isn't just smuggling goods, they're smuggling organs. The confidential briefcase Joe found at the police station, it was filled with counterfeit organ donor cards, part of Corbin's operation. The body strung up in the basement, supplies for the black market. Corbin had turned Walton's desperate citizens into human livestock. Ava proposes a way to stop Corbin and the network. Flood the tunnels. It would destroy their operations, but it would also kill everyone hiding in the tunnels. Innocent people too. It's a heavy decision, but Penny decides to go through with Ava's plan. Penny sneaks into the control room and flips the valve that diverts the water into the network's tunnels. She then climbs to the top of a nearby water tower. At the top, she twists the final valve, releasing a massive surge of water from the reservoir. She watches silently as the tunnels below begin to flood, knowing that hundreds of lives, guilty and innocent, are being swept away. On her way back to regroup, Penny discovers Ava's lifeless body. She had been hunted down and killed by the network's enforcers, who were now patrolling the water treatment plant. Penny barely makes it out with her life. Back at Pogo's, Joe returns to confront Corbin. The restaurant is eerily silent. Corbin sits in front of the counter, fully aware that his empire is gone. While the water rushed in, Corbin was lucky enough to be smoking a cigarette outside, and he was not swept away by the flooding water. He tells Joe that even if he survived today, it really doesn't matter. His backers, powerful unseen forces, will ensure that him and our crew are hunted for the rest of our lives. When Corbin is done talking, Joe doesn't hesitate. He kills Corbin, putting an end to the monster who bled Walton dry. The tunnel leading out of Pogo's is long and dark. Undead lurk inside, but most are dormant. Joe fights through the few active zombies that are blocking his way. After a brutal but vicious struggle, he reaches the far end of the tunnel and emerges into the blinding daylight beyond Walton's walls. The survivors gather together. Before them lies a vast stretch of cracked earth and untamed grass. Behind them, the belt wall cuts across the landscape like a spine of concrete. Beyond that, the crumbling ruins of Walton City shimmer and tremble in the heat. They are free, but the scars they carry will stay with them forever. Part 2, the helicopter ending. For the next ending, I decided to play with the survivors Tracey and Wayne. Here are their backstories. Tracey had originally come to a rodeo to protest the mistreatment of horses, but unexpectedly fell for Wade, a rugged bronc rider. Despite their different backgrounds, their connection was electric. They quickly started planning a future together. On the night of the outbreak, Tracey's pregnancy came back positive. Now, the couple finds themselves not only fighting to survive the undead, but also grappling with the terrifying prospect of starting a family in this collapsing world. Tracey and Wayne's journey begins similarly. Inside an abandoned diner, they establish the same system. Tracey stays behind to maintain the shelter, while Wayne, being the thrill seeker he is, ventures out to scavenge supplies and find safe shelters. One of the first places Wayne heads towards is Texway Gas on Hart Street. There, they receive the same radio signal from Joe just like before, and Joe joins their growing group. After moving into Texway Gas Station, Wayne sets out to scavenge a house located at 15 Independence Boulevard. In the backyard of the house, he hears a radio that's been left on. Over the static-filled transmission, an unfamiliar voice is heard, desperately asking for an airlift out of the city. Someone they love is gravely ill. This marks the first major clue in the helicopter escape. Inside the same house, Wayne finds a woman holed up in one of the rooms on the second floor. Her name is Michelle. Her husband, Eugene, left on a supply run a week ago and never returned. Fearing the worst, Michelle decides to leave the house and join the group at their shelter. Another survivor added to the team. The group then heads towards Lester's Motor and Automotive. There they find Lester himself, holed up inside an office. Lester has been surviving alone, scavenging for scraps, but he's rapidly running out of food. Unfortunately, the group doesn't have enough resources to feed another mouth at this time, so they let Lester continue fending for himself. Deeper inside the building, they find another radio left running. Over it, a voice says, "There's enough space to land in the backyard, but don't clip the hedges." Another clue about the helicopter's landing site. Next, the crew makes their way to North High School. The school is massive and packed with supplies, but it's also crawling with zombies. At the very back of the school, inside the gymnasium, Wayne hears the familiar sound of radio static. Over the radio in the gymnasium, he catches a heated conversation. Someone's trying to convince a helicopter pilot to land in a cluttered suburban area. The pilot expresses concerns about the tight clearances. It becomes clear the survivors have been piecing together a trail of clues leading to a charter helicopter, meant to land at a property called Millwood Manor in Kingside. The group decides they must take the long trek across Walton to reach the manor. After a long and dangerous journey, the crew reaches Millwood Manor. The lower levels of the manor are infested with zombies. As they carefully move through, they find notes and papers scattered around, telling a tragic story. Someone in the household had gotten sick, but none of the nearby clinics would help. Behind the manor, the survivors find a crashed helicopter. From the wreckage, a trail of blood leads to the manor's third floor. Following the trail, they find a man handcuffed to a railing, clearly injured, but alive. The man introduces himself as the helicopter's pilot. He explains that an old man had chained him up after the crash and taken the key to his bedroom. The crew promises to find the key and free him. Making their way deeper into the manor, they come across an unsettling assortment of drugs, antivirals, stimulants, and depressants scattered across various rooms. At the end of the third floor, they finally encounter the old man responsible. His name is Red. Red acts as if nothing is wrong. He speaks casually to Joe, asking if he's there to apply for the groundskeeper position. When Joe questions him about the pilot chained to the railing, Red simply shrugs and says, "I was just a little heavy-handed with him. He can leave once my wife wakes up." Joe can hear snarling coming from behind the door. When asked about it, Red responds coldly, "That happens to be a private matter. All I'll say is, we have a treatment plan, and she's, well, on the road to recovery." It's clear Red is completely delusional. He refuses to accept reality, that his wife has turned into one of the undead. Joe is left with no choice. He kills Red to stop the madness. Inside the bedroom, he finds Red Pete's zombified wife, still chained to the bed frame. Nearby, Joe finds a clipboard filled with desperate attempts at medical treatments. None had worked. Red had been trying to cure the incurable. Joe ends her suffering, then retrieves the key to Cooper's handcuffs. Joe rushes back to Cooper and unlocks the cuffs. Cooper is in bad shape, weak, bloodied, and still losing a lot of blood. The crew brings him back to the shelter. They bandage him, give him medicine, and splint his broken limbs. With proper care, Cooper stabilizes enough to survive, though he's still sore and lightheaded. Despite his injuries, Cooper is confident he's healthy enough to fly. Cooper tells them about a second helicopter he spotted on the top of St. Bernadette's Hospital. However, he isn't sure if there is enough fuel. They'll need to find more just in case. Cooper suggests checking the Buckland container yard for emergency fuel reserves. The crew sets off on a long and treacherous journey to the Buckland container yard. The yard is sprawling and dangerous, filled with tight corners and hidden undead. Moving carefully through the maze of shipping containers, the crew eventually locates a stash of fuel cans. They gather what they need and quickly make their escape, avoiding a full-on fight with the hordes lurking nearby. Now fully stocked with fuel, they set their sights on their final objective, St. Bernadette Hospital. Bernadette Hospital is the most zombie-infested location they've faced so far. Every hallway, every room is packed to the brim with undead. The survivors battle their way, floor by floor, pushing toward the roof where the helicopter awaits. Finally, they reach the rooftop, but as they do, the hospital's power goes out. Without electricity, they can't take off. The group is forced to fight their way back down through the darkened hospital, battling even more zombies in pitch-black hallways. It's a brutal, grueling ordeal. Eventually, they reach the generator room and manage to restore power. With the hospital lights flickering back to life, they fight their way back to the rooftop. They clamber into the helicopter. The machine stutters, belching black smoke and green liquid trails from the fuselage as Cooper starts the engine. The fuel gauge steadily drops, but Cooper manages to lift them off the roof. The helicopter wobbles and sputters as it struggles to stay airborne. Below them, the ruins of Walton shrink away as they soar over the Beltway wall. They don't make it far. The helicopter's landing gear slams into dry dirt and cracked earth outside the city. The rotors slowly grind to a stop. The door slides open, revealing an endless, dusty expanse stretching in all directions. The survivors made it out alive, but just barely. The shelter occupants all agree to split up and go their separate ways before the National Guard arrives. Cooper scratches at the bandage on his wrist as he glances back at the city. Now just a shimmering, ruined outline trembling in the distance. It's impossible not to think about all those who didn't make it out. Walton City, once alive, now only a graveyard. Thank you guys for watching. This was Toad Knight. I had a blast with this game. I think it's really good. If you guys want to check out my personal channel, it's Toad Knight JRPG. Link will be in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.